The Baltimore Ravens make a stunning trade. Odafe Oweh is no longer a member of the Baltimore Ravens. He is headed west. We talk about what happened, how shocking this is, and what could be next for this Ravens team, all coming up on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. We're here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, for being here on this Tuesday afternoon again, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every day, or maybe it's your second or third listen because we had our regular episode in the morning. We had another instant reaction show talking about CJ Gardner-Johnson being signed. Now we're here talking about the absolutely stunning trade. Odafe Oweh is headed west to Los Angeles, not changing families head coach-wise, still be a Harbaugh brother, but the Los Angeles Chargers officially acquire Odafe Oweh from the Baltimore Ravens. We're here to break everything down, why the Ravens made the move, what the Ravens are even getting in this move, what went wrong for Oweh in his Ravens tenure, and whether this could be the beginning of a much larger fire sale in Baltimore right now as we creep up on the trade deadline. So appreciate everybody for being here today. Again, we're 5 days a week plus more here on Locked On Ravens. So every single day we have Ravens coverage and content. You know, usually this isn't an afternoon program. We've been doing a lot of these instant reaction shows recently, and I love doing them, interacting with the community, because there are so many things that this Ravens team is doing right now, moving and grooving all the way around. And man, I'll tell you what, this one kind of out of nowhere, but when you take a step back initially, it makes a lot of sense. So let's just get into the actual, how this happened. I mean, I was literally finishing up and, editing down the CJ Gardner-Johnson instant reaction show, getting that out on social media. At least I was trying to. I couldn't actually do it because then the notification pops up. The Ravens have traded Odafe Oweh to the Los Angeles Chargers. And the Ravens in return, so the full trade details, it's Odafe Oweh and a 5th-round pick in 2026 going to the Ravens. The Chargers, they're going to get, so the Ravens, Alohi Gilman in a 2026 5th-round pick. It's the Chargers that are receiving Odafe Oweh in the future 7th-round pick. So more secondary help. The Ravens adding 2 safeties essentially on the same day. Now, Oweh in Baltimore in general was a decently big disappointment. And there was a lot of controversy when he was drafted by the Ravens, right? 0 sacks in his final year of college at Penn State. Not a lot of production. The Ravens were banking on his athletic tools. But, even being 6'5", 265, he added on the extra weight in the offseason. No sacks through 5 games, pretty much invisible so far through these 5 games. And what this tells me, and obviously just trading him tells this to you, but speaking the obvious, the Ravens gave up on Odafe Oweh. They did not have him in their future plans. And honestly, I'm not sure they had him in their future plans to begin with. Even if he was able to put together another double-digit sack season, I think he probably would have priced himself out of Baltimore. But we know that Eric DeCosta is not afraid of moving off of guys that he does not believe fit what this team needs, that he does not believe are producing the right way for this team. And that is exactly what he did here with Odafe Oweh. Oweh officially in Baltimore, his career in Baltimore spanned, again, just over 4 seasons, didn't finish the 5th year. He had 23 sacks in, I'll call it 4.5 years in Baltimore, a little less than 4.5 years. 5 sacks his rookie season, 3 his second season, 5 his third year. Did put it together last year for 10. But the thing with Oweh is the consistency was never really there for him, where he had, 3 sacks against Pittsburgh last year, but then disappeared for like a month and a half and then would come back with another big game, then would disappear for another 3 weeks. The consistency was never there for him. And so now he will go to Los Angeles with Jim Harbaugh, in that pass rusher room on that defense. And Jim will try to get more out of him than John did. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition. But the pick itself, I liked the swing on upside. I don't love drafting players without production personally. And, I talked about that on the show when we first, did that with Oweh being drafted by Baltimore. But this one was a swing and a miss by Eric DeCosta. And now you kind of have to look back on, I don't know who was taken after Oweh. That's probably something we'll talk about on tomorrow's show. But now, if you're the Ravens, it leaves you pretty thin in the pass rushing department, which, at least on the edge, which maybe means that another move could be coming. I'm not sure. Right now, the Ravens outside linebackers, there aren't really a ton of them at this point on the roster. I mean, it's obviously Tavius Robinson, Kyle Van Noy, David Ajabo, and Mike Green. I guess the Ravens, they don't have an open roster spot because they did bring back Alohi Gilman in this deal. So maybe going lighter at outside linebacker. But I think that this, and we'll talk about this as the show goes on, I think this does open up possibilities of the Ravens trading for a pass rusher themselves, or it is the beginning of a fire sale. And maybe that means Mark Andrews goes. Maybe that means Travis Jones goes. Maybe that means other players go. I don't know. But this signals that the Ravens did not have any confidence in Odafe Oweh. They were done with Odafe Oweh. And the value that they got for him was not particularly great. This, to me, was more of a cap-saving move where Baltimore does free up about $8 million in cap space by trading Oweh to the Chargers. I mean, Alohi Gilman is fine. He signed a 2-year, $10 million deal with the Chargers a couple of years ago. So, this is a rental, much like Oweh is for Los Angeles. Alohi Gilman is for the Ravens. And this kind of signals to me that the Ravens want to get as much secondary help in as they can, not just for the depth, but to be able to move Kyle Hamilton all around. CJ Gardner-Johnson, that move allows the Ravens to move Kyle Hamilton all around the field. I think Gilman kind of does the same thing. But again, getting a 5th round pick and a mid-level safety for a former first rounder kind of tells you Oweh's value around the league. Plus, they also had to give up the 7th rounder. So it was kind of a 2-round swap plus, a middling safety. And I haven't had enough time to go in and do the film work on Alohi Gilman right now, but we'll kind of see. That's why I'm calling him a middle level player, because I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's like this top tier safety. So he will help in a little bit different way, in a couple of different ways. But now if you're Baltimore, you have to pick a direction. Is this season lost? Do you want to accumulate capital? Do you want to try to have a retooling year? Or do you want to try to go for something, make a big trade, use some of the cap space that is gained in this trade, use some of the draft capital that you have, and go make a couple of big swings and try to win with this roster? Because you do, even though Oweh was a disappointment in Baltimore overall from a general perspective, this is a downgrade in terms of their roster right now. You're not getting another pass rusher back in this deal. You're going to have to rely even more. Kyle Van Noy is going to have to get even more snaps. You're going to have to hope that Mike Green takes another step. That's why truly, the next move will be the telling move to me, right? Because I think this move sets up, okay, what do the Ravens do next? Is it a big move to address something to make their roster better? Or are they punting the season, trying to get high draft capital, trying to get as much capital as they can to position themselves better for 2026? This trade sets up both pathways. Whichever trade comes next, whichever move comes next, that is what I will base what the Ravens actually feel like this season is right now. And this probably is the start, right? You see CJ Gardner-Johnson come in, you see this move. The Ravens know they have to shake things up. And I said this on the watch along. I said this on, the instant reaction shows and everything we've done here on Locked On Ravens. Someone was going to have to answer for this. Some move was going to have to be made. And Odafe Oweh is the one that ends up answering for it. So, again, it's shocking in the fact that I didn't expect Oweh to be back in Baltimore next season, but I didn't expect them to trade him for essentially pennies on the dollar. But, it essentially is a salary dump here, in my opinion. I expect the Ravens to put Kyle Hamilton in the box on most, if not all, of these plays. Chargers fans seem to be happy that, Gilman is leaving Los Angeles and coming to Baltimore. And the consensus to me is that it feels like Ravens fans are happy that Oweh is leaving and going to Los Angeles. Feels like two players that just maybe needed a change of scenery, needed, a fresh start. And, the thing is, this is probably a little brutally honest for me, but I didn't really notice Oweh on the field this season at all. And that's not me trying to be disrespectful. It's me literally just saying, I don't think he made nearly the impact I thought that he would. He wasn't involved in a lot of plays. His stats for this year, in general, he has 5 games, only 10 tackles for the Ravens, 1 tackle for loss. He has 5 quarterback hits, but again, he wasn't noticeable on the field. And so when you're committing that much money to a player, and that's why for Oweh in particular, 5th-year option for him, that was a conversation that we had plenty on Locked On Ravens. And right now, they picked up that 5th-year option, so they wanted to see what he had. But that was kind of the trial period, it felt like. And if you remember in 2019, I say this all the time on the show, in 2019, the Ravens, after a pretty horrid start defensively, they had 2 terrible games. They cut Tim Williams, who was a high draft pick for them 3 years ago at that point. They signed Josh Bynes and LJ Fort. They traded for Marcus Peters. There was a lot of roster reshuffling going around, which is what we're now seeing and what I think will continue with this Baltimore Ravens team. So look, they took a swing on the upside. They took a swing on the traits, and it clearly didn't work out. Baltimore's kind of been leaning in those ways, but you can also kind of tell, and I see that people in the chat, I can't find them right now, but people were saying, yeah, you know what, I saw this coming. And actually looking at the snap count, Spencer Schultz just put this out. Maybe the writing was on the wall here, where in week 3, some snap counts, Odafe Oweh played 28 snaps, Mike Green 52, and Tavius Robinson 54. Week 4, Odafe Oweh 33 snaps, Mike Green 45, Tavius Robinson 57. Week 5, Odafe Oweh just 26 snaps, Mike Green 42, and Tavius Robinson 50. You also have a guy in Trenton Simpson who can play on the edge, so I think that that's probably the role we're going to see Trenton in a lot more. Now with Oweh gone, you have some positional versatility, but I'm curious to see if this is what they want to roll with or if they're going to add somebody else. That's the big thing. If you want to add somebody else, you have an opportunity to, but do you want to use that cap space or do you want to take a swing on another guy? I'd go for it. I'd make a big move, but that's going to be up to the Ravens right now. And, the Ravens, they're done with DBs. I see people talking about it. They don't need any more DBs. I get it. They want to move Hamilton in the box. They want the depth. But in my opinion, this move was more about getting rid of Oweh and the Ravens being done with him than it is about, getting back capital for him and honestly getting something back, right? You're able to kind of do a trial run with Alohi Gilman, see how he looks in this system, and maybe re-sign him in the offseason for a cheaper deal. And for Oweh, the thing is, with him, you're kind of probably losing value with the comp pick, depending on what he was going to get in free agency, or maybe you're just breaking even with the 5th rounder, because if he had signed a huge deal somewhere else, you would have got maybe a 3rd, 4th round comp pick. But now that you trade him for the 5th, that essentially is what you're locking in for Oweh. But again, I did not expect him back in Baltimore whatsoever. So coming up with the second part of the show, we're going to keep diving into this trade, reacting to it, what it means. We'll grade it, look at what the Ravens can do from here again, and a lot more. So be sure to stay tuned. We will be right back here on the Instant Reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks, and this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. My favorite part, PrizePicks just added stacks, so if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. The new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still instantly reacting to the Ravens stunningly trading Odafe Oweh to the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, in terms of the deal, the Ravens will receive Alohi Gilman and a 5th round pick in 2026. Meanwhile, the Chargers get Oweh and a future 7th rounder. The Ravens will also free up $8 million in cap space with this move. We're 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, so be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form for all your Ravens content and coverage needs. We got so much content. Weekend bonus episodes, regular show Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time, instant reactions, watch-alongs, the whole 9 yards. And so we have you covered. We got you covered over here on Locked On Ravens. Now, let's grade this deal. if you're in the chat live with us, if you're watching after the fact, or if you're just listening after the fact, you want to shoot me a message on social media, let's grade this deal. A, B, C, D, F. I saw actually, I can't remember who said it, but for the CJ Gardner-Johnson deal, someone said E for effort. I can't remember who it was, so I apologize, but someone said E for effort. I don't love this deal for the Ravens, if I'm being honest with you. Like, again, Oweh being gone opens opportunities. The value to me is not very good. Now, this is probably some of the best that they could get based off the fact that he is in a contract year. Probably going to demand a little money, but, it does kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to give it a C. I don't love it. It's not the worst deal in the world. I think getting rid of Oweh is fine because you want a player on the field that can contribute more anyway. And if the Ravens truly are trying to play him in this role that he's not good at, or he's just not playing well in general, I mean, it's something. But again, the value isn't great for the Ravens here. Former first rounder, double-digit sack last season. Trade him 5 games in. Kind of tells you, 1, how bad he was this season so far, and 2, how done the Ravens just were with him in general. So, it's tough. And I see the comment, I see Ghost putting in the chat, it doesn't help us at all. For now, it does not. You're right. That's why I want to see what they do next, where Gilman can be a nice depth piece. But again, he's a middling safety. And, the potential that Oweh maybe could turn. And by the way, if he goes out there and has 10 sacks for the Chargers for the rest of the way, it's going to be pretty telling on whose fault it actually was that Oweh was not producing. So, I mean, this is what I'd think. And Jess Rebeck saying the same thing. A lot of other people saying the same thing, is that I think that Eric DeCosta is not done. I think this is just the beginning, because right now your pass rush room is Kyle Van Noy, Tavius Robinson, Mike Green, and David Ojabo. That's all you have right now. So could you maybe make a move for a Dexter Lawrence or a Quinnen Williams or a Jeffrey Simmons? Could you do a move for Kayvon Thibodeau? Could you try to pry Kevin Zeitler from Tennessee? There are a lot of different things the Ravens could do and ways they could move. But for a pass rush that's already struggling, and Oweh was a big part of that struggle, don't get me wrong, you now have to kind of fill a void. And I think that void, their plan is to use Trenton Simpson in that role and honestly give Mike Green a lot more snaps, with Kyle Van Noy kind of being as old as he is. And he's not 40 years old or anything, but you do want to maybe start to manage his snaps a little bit, use him in spots. So this is going to be a big test for the young guys. The problem is that this is a lot for a team that was expected to win a Super Bowl, or not expected to win, but expected to contend for a Super Bowl, I should say, and be in that conversation to win it. And, now we're sitting here, the Ravens are trading away disappointing players. And, this is kind of what happened and what sparked the Ravens in 2019. They did the roster turnover and, brought guys in, fresh voices, fresh players. The problem is that they did that last year, or in 2019, when they were 2-2. That's when they started that. The problem here is that now you're 1-4, and you're quite more banged up than you were in 2019. So, it's difficult to kind of imagine what direction this team is going in right now, because there are so many. Again, as long as you have Lamar Jackson, you have a chance. But if you fall to 1-5, as we talked about on the Instant Reaction Show with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, if you haven't watched that or our episode from this morning, shameless plug, be sure to go back and watch and listen to that. A lot of great content. But I mean, you go 1-5. The team that had the least amount of wins last year that got into the playoffs was a couple of them at 10. So 10-7. If you're 1-5, you only have essentially 2 to 3 at the absolute max losses over your next handful of games, over the rest of the season, to go out there and actually go and win and go on a run, where the Ravens can. Their schedule opens up. But I just, that would be the plan, right? DPG saying 1-5, then you got to go 9-2 the last 11 games of the season, which, again, anything can happen. But the problem is, defensively, when they're healthy, even when they've been healthy, they didn't play well. So that's the big problem here, is where is that production going to come from? And I'm not saying replacing Oweh's production, because there was no Oweh production this season. There was nothing from Oweh this season in terms of production. But where are you getting your production from? Who is manufacturing that production? Is it Kyle Van Noy? Does Mike Green take a step? And I see Mike the DJ putting it in here saying, I sincerely hope that this trade brings in an interior defensive lineman or an edge. That's probably what I would assume. It is what I would assume. And I listed off those guys. I feel like there are a lot of different players they could bring in, whether it is the big swing with a first round pick or second round pick, or, more along the fifth round variety. I would love to see them make that swing, make that move. But, Jess Rebeck reporting that the Ravens had extension talks with Odafe Oweh this past offseason, but they didn't get very far. And it seemed likely that he was headed to the market in March. And so this allows the Ravens to get something immediate in return and create more flexibility in the secondary. And we know that the Ravens, like this, the way this Ravens defense is constructed, they're not going to win anything, even when everybody's healthy, especially when Madubuike is out for the year. You now don't have Oweh anymore to at least have that potential, which again wasn't really working anyway. So whatever. But the way this defense is constructed, you're not winning anything. You need to get another guy in here, or two or more than that can give you production. And on the offensive line, that's a whole different conversation. Obviously, this is more defensive focused because it's Oweh and Gilman and CJ Gardner-Johnson. But, I see Luke talking about Christian Wilkins. He says, I know it might sound crazy, but I say go pick up Christian Wilkins. Besides all his locker room drama, we need some help with this D-line. I mean, yeah, the locker room stuff will be interesting. That's something that factors in, I'm sure. But Christian Wilkins is by far the best interior defensive lineman left on the market here. And I can actually look up defensive lineman free agents, NFL, do some quick research here on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. Best defensive lineman free agents right now, it's Wilkins, and then guys like Linval Joseph, and that's really it. Like, there's not a lot out there. In terms of pass rushers, you got DeMarcus Walker, Carl Lawson. Hey, bring Yannick Ngakoue back. There you go. There's the solution. Yannick Ngakoue. No, I'm kidding. But again, I feel like any significant move the needle addition would have to probably come in the form of a trade. And that to me is that's why I think moving the needle is important here. Like, I don't want the Ravens to make a deal that's like, oh, this is a depth piece that can maybe help out in spots. That's not going to help this team this year. They have enough of those guys on the roster already. You need to make the big splash. You need to make the big splash, because right now, this Ravens defense can't do anything. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They can't stop giving up points. They can't stop guys on third down. They can't stop guys on fourth down. They can't stop guys in the red zone. They can't do anything right now. So this could be the writing on the wall for multiple players. Could be the writing on the wall for Zach Orr. And I think, and again, I said this on the Instant Reaction show for CJ Gardner-Johnson. I went on Ken McCusick's show for talking about the Ravens defense versus Texans offense. And Ken kind of described it as this is 4th and 8 for Zach Orr right now in terms of his tenure for the Ravens. And I tend to agree, where like if this Rams game doesn't go well and they lose like 2 scores, 30-16 or something like that, I think Orr does get moved on from. And I think that, you kind of have a situation where you either feel confident enough in the guys in the building, but right now, why would you? I mean, clearly they don't, because they just traded away one of them. So they know that something has to change. They understand that, and they're making moves. And, Kevin asking possibility we can get a top pass rusher from a different team. I mean, I think the top one right now, I mean, the guy that comes to my mind is Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't know if there's anybody else out there. And if anybody else has a name, feel free to put it in the chat or in the comments or message me on social media about it. But I mean, I think that you can make that move. The problem is it would have to go against everything the Ravens have kind of represented, where they don't like to make that big swing and trade, top draft capital for players. I think that they need to move on from that mindset, because again, you don't have to win every trade long-term. Like, again, this is kind of what this was almost, right? Where the Ravens know they're not going to re-sign a guy, so they trade him for whatever they can. And that being a 5th rounder and a middling safety, I mean, it just comes down to, I guess, opinion on who Oweh is and who he could become, right? Do you feel like Oweh could have kind of gotten back to his 2024 form when he was actually productive, when he wasn't inconsistent? Or do you think that it was just time? There was no way for him? Because again, I think what sums up Oweh's career is the fact that the biggest play of his Ravens tenure came in his 2nd ever game, and he never really came close to that outside of his 3-sack game last year against Pittsburgh, right? That fumble on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the game-winning fumble to give the Ravens and Lamar their first win against Mahomes, which, still it's their only win against Mahomes, but that was the play. And that's where everyone was like, okay, like, here it is. This is what Oweh can be. And then we just never really saw the growth from there. So I think that it wasn't going to be a long-term partnership for the Ravens and Oweh. It was pretty apparent that he was going to leave in the offseason, and, that's okay. But now you do have to kind of, if you're the Ravens, really trust the rest of the guys in that building or bring in somebody else, because you do have $8 million more now in cap space. What do they do with that cap space? That's going to be the next big question. So coming up in the final part of the show, we'll keep diving into this trade, reacting to it, because man, I'm still a little shocked and stunned by it. Still getting the emotions out. So be sure to stay tuned. Got plenty coming your way on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive, standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still reacting with you to the Odafe Oweh trade. He's gone. It's official. Oweh gets his fifth-year option picked up, and he is off to Los Angeles after just 5 games in 2025. No really production from Oweh there, so can't say I'm necessarily like, wow, this was never going to happen. But again, just the timing of it. Someone had to answer, like I said, and that person apparently is Odafe Oweh. So we'll be reacting to this throughout the rest of the week. Obviously, CJ Gardner-Johnson as well. We'll react to that and everything that's going on right now with this Ravens team. So be sure, hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form for that 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. You can check in with us for our watch-alongs during games, our instant reaction shows, both the big news like this and right after games. Got Locked On Ravens Squad show twice a week. So we got so much Ravens content for you. But this Oweh trade, I mean, look, looking towards the future, there's a lot that you kind of have to wonder about, because you have so many points on your roster of weakness right now for the Ravens. And that, a lot of it has to do with injury, but some of it is just guys underperforming. So, this trade was not like, oh, the Ravens are bringing in a guy that can like plug a hole or anything. It's more so Alohi Gilman is coming in to probably free up Kyle Hamilton a little bit more, which is what they need to do. So that at least itself is a win. But now you need to go out there and continue to reshape this roster, because you're running out of time here. Like, you're running out of time. And the way that this roster is structured, the Ravens love their secondary. We know that. I think the Ravens invest too much in their secondary. It's a lot of high draft picks, a lot of talent, which is good, but it leaves a lot to be desired sometimes at other positions on the roster. The Ravens have cheaped out on their guard positions for years, for years. And now you're kind of seeing that with Falele and Voorhees not playing well. The whole offensive line right now is in shambles. And now there are questions about, are the Ravens going to pay Tyler Linderbaum or not? Roger Rosengarten's regressed. Ronnie Stanley's been injured. In the pass rusher department, I thought Micah Parsons was perfect. He would have been the clear-cut guy, long-term piece. Hey, you probably got to give up 2 first-rounders and Odafe Oweh, right? Well, now Oweh's gone for a 5th-rounder and Alohi Gilman, and you could have maybe traded away 2 firsts and Oweh for Micah Parsons. And I get the contract is huge. It's massive, right? And Parsons himself, like, what's one player going to do? Well, Micah Parsons can do a lot for your defense. And that's somebody that I feel like, and even if it's not Parsons, I see people talking about Myles Garrett in the chat and Max Crosby and some of those guys, those maybe players that could be on the block at some point who just signed extensions. So that's why I'm not necessarily super involved in that right now, because I just don't think they're realistic targets at this point. But and I see, like, right now, the consensus is that the Chargers won the trade and won it by a pretty big margin. And, it's just the upside that Oweh has. The Chargers can get something out of him. We'll see. I'm curious to watch him for these first couple of weeks. But, Chargers fans about Alohi Gilman right now reminds me of when Alejandro Villanueva came to Baltimore. They are celebrating in the streets that Alohi Gilman is off their team. So again, and I don't expect Gilman to play a huge role, but this is what I said with CJ Gardner-Johnson. At least he's someone who has been in the league for more than like 2 years, right? That to me is the big conversation for Alohi Gilman, where he's someone that can at least give you experience of any sort to go out there and know where to be, at least. Like, that is the big topic of conversation for me. at this point, you're not bringing in like stars and studs to your roster in every trade. But Gilman, at least, who, was drafted in 2020, so he's been in the league for a little bit now, at least he can line up in the right spots or get guys in the right positions, hopefully. Like, all of that is really big. So, again, it's not a move that moves me. It's more just the shocking nature of like, man, the Ravens really didn't like what they saw from Odafe Oweh, which they shouldn't have. Like, he wasn't consistent over the course of his career. They took a swing on the upside. Doing that in the first round is always a gamble. And I get it was the end of the first round. It was the pick that they got for Orlando Brown Jr. So, it's 31st pick. Well, 31st pick is very valuable. And I just think that, Oweh to me was more of a second round talent anyway. They could have gone with other guys that would have probably made more impact. So, it is what it is now. I mean, he's gone, and, it's disappointing because of the potential that he does have, but kind of reminds me a little bit of the conversation of Zach Orr, where they just, I guess, didn't feel like they had time to wait. Now with Zach Orr, they haven't moved on, so we'll have to see. But Oweh, the potential is there. They just don't have the time to waste snaps on him right now if he's not producing the way that he is. But, at the end of the day, still not great value, in my opinion. So I think, again, it tells you how much they didn't really like him or just wanted him gone. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. You have a lot. I see Jeffrey Simmons and Kevin Zeitler. I see Crosby in the chat. I see Myles Garrett in the chat. Like, there are a lot of players that could be that answer, but the Ravens have to undergo such an organizational shift to make a move like a Crosby or a Garrett. Not that those guys are available, but I'm just saying, like, those bigger tiered pass rushers, but it's what they need to do. It's what they need to do. These guys are not getting any younger, right? Whenever you have Lamar Jackson, you have a chance. Lamar's going to be 29 at the end of this season. You have other players too. I expect the Ravens right now, personally, to move off of both Marlon Humphrey and Roquan Smith after the end of this season. You can cut both guys and save, I think, $7 to $8 million each. Now, the problem with cutting a guy like Roquan is you'd need a guy to replace him. So, maybe they go somewhere else and, Roquan, maybe he can step up. Like, again, the way they're playing right now, they should move on from both. Clear up $60 million in cap space for both of them combined. I just, retooling in a year like this with the expectations like this, it's not great. And by the way, John Harbaugh is probably like, man, I really needed the production from Oweh, because guess what? If the Ravens have a disappointing exit, John Harbaugh is probably not the coach of this team next season. So, he's probably banging down Eric DeCosta's door saying, please trade the draft picks. I need to win this year. Please, this is for my job. That's what John Harbaugh is probably saying right now. He doesn't want to go into this like retooling year. That's going to be the end of the line for him in Baltimore, probably. He wants this team to compete. He wants this team to win because he needs to win in order to stay the coach of this team. So that means Eric DeCosta, if he wants to save John Harbaugh's job, has to go out there and make those moves, or at least a move, because you really have to wonder what this team's going to look like by the time the trade deadline looks like for the Ravens right now. Because there are, again, so many different directions that they could go. And, and this is, it's Joseph saying it right here. Time is a luxury we don't have, a phrase that works in bad movies. Seriously, though, we need to turn it around quick. But if we don't, I'll be watching every game. And that's the thing, right? We're going to be watching every game, going to be reacting, and we're going to be doing it live here on Locked On Ravens. We have the watch-alongs. But, it's been a hard watch. Like, it's not like the Ravens are 1-4 and they've been competitive in the games that they've lost outside of the Bills game before the fourth quarter, right at the end of that game. But I've said this all the time. It's how they're losing. It's how they're losing these games. They're uncompetitive. They are dejected and defeated. It's stuff I've said over and over and over again. And, this is the beginning of like, hey, this is not acceptable, which at least I'm glad that seems to be the mindset, which, Harbaugh's talked about, everybody's talked about. But this, to me, is probably the first move of many. Which direction they're going to go in here, I'm not sure. But, man, busy day for the Ravens, bringing in both Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Alohi Gilman and moving off of Odafe Oweh in the same vein. And I see here, just join, what's your reaction? I mean, I think that, for the Ravens, it wasn't great value. You're moving off of a former first rounder who, again, didn't have production, for a fifth rounder and a middle-link safety. I just feel like it wasn't great value for the Ravens, which, again, just proved how little value Oweh had, probably to the Ravens and around the league. But the Ravens also have to figure out what they have to do with Lamar Jackson's contract, which again, I'd be floored if he wasn't in Baltimore long-term, but he has a $70+ million cap hit for next year. You have to work around that. You have to free up cap space. This does give them wiggle room to maybe give an extension to somebody or make a move. I don't know what that looks like, but you still need defensive line help. You still need pass rush help. You still need offensive line help. You still need to get guys back from injury. You need to coach better. You need to play better in general. There's just so much that has to go on right now for the Ravens. So Oweh officially gone. Goes to the Chargers. His Ravens tenure ends after, again, pretty disappointing overall in general. He ends his Ravens career with 23 sacks, 10 of which came last season. So we'll be reacting to this all on Locked On Ravens. I said after the CJ Gardner-Johnson one, I'll see you tomorrow. Well, I don't know. Maybe the Ravens will make another move when we're back here tonight again. But if there's nothing else, we'll be back here tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern time, doing a deep dive into CJ Gardner-Johnson, into Alohi Gilman, into Odafe Oweh, into this Ravens team and what comes next, because there is so much to talk about. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.